The relationship between men and mental health has often been called a silent crisis. On this podcast, we're breaking the silence. Welcome to Mental Health. It's time to talk. Here's your host, Allan Kehler.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. On this episode, I'm fortunate to be joined by my good friend, Chuck. Thus, Chuck, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Allan, thank you. It's totally an honor, and I'm excited for our conversation today.
Me too. Now, Chuck, here's what I know about you. I mean, yes, you have spent 8 years playing at the professional level of hockey as a goaltender. Yes, Chuck, you also coached at the professional level, and actually, you led Team USA to 5 gold medals at the World Inline Skating Championships, yes?
I have, yes, sir.
But, Chuck, what impresses me the most about you is who you are as a person. And we have had many interesting conversations, many of which have actually been focused on mental health. And we've talked a lot about the relationship that exists between energy and mental health. And Chuck, I am very curious, when exactly was it that you realized that you were very sensitive to the energy of others?
You know, Allan, I look back at the way I grew up in small town Ontario, and the way I was raised by my parents was very unique and very special. I was raised learning a lot about the law of attraction. You can attract into your life what you want. Dr. Harry Roeder, who I was introduced to very, very early in my life, was a big advocate for this type of work. And my parents did a lot of workshops with him. And so for some reason, at a very young age, I was intrigued by all of this. I mean, you couldn't give me enough of it. Back then, I was making my own tapes to help program my subconscious mind and doing all of this stuff. And but I don't really think, Allan, that it sunk in and really that I understood how other people's energy can potentially affect you until probably around 2008, something like that. That's when I really hit rock bottom. Probably will get emotional talking about it today. But as you and I have done on numerous calls with each other, so I feel very comfortable with all of that. But I would say probably it wasn't until 2008 that I really started to learn who I was. And I owe a lot of that to the lady that saved my life and my best friend, Sheila Butcher. She really taught me and still to this day teaches me who I am and reminds me of that, all the time when we call. And it's really a special thing. I think when you realize who you are and the power that you have in you and how outside forces can affect you, it's a game changer.
Well, Chuck, you alluded to 2008 and that proverbial rock bottom. Before we talk a little bit more about the energy piece, do you mind just sharing what exactly transpired in 2008?
Absolutely. And it really, it all kind of came to a head in 2008, Allan, but it was a culmination of many years of me probably not really knowing who I was, not understanding the power that I had, not understanding what I'm made of, really. And I was really crippled by tremendous anxiety, tremendous depression, and I was living everywhere but in the now. I was looking forward, what's going to happen in the next week, month, years, and what didn't happen in the last week, month, or years, why I didn't make it to the National Hockey League. I want to go back and change that because, by gosh, that was my boyhood dream and I should have achieved it, and I would beat myself up nonstop. And it just really came to a head in 2008. And I was driving home on Interstate 10 one day, and I just wasn't willing to continue. I was in such a dark spot. Nobody knew. My wife knew. My wife, Jamie, she has been an angel for me as well. But nobody knew what I was going through. And, I was a tough, rugged hockey player. We weren't supposed to talk about those things, right? Because I had so many instances before that while I was playing the game, I had things go on, and doctors, look at me, nothing's wrong, go back, and back in that time, in the late 90s and early 2000s, nobody talked about it. But I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression, and I just really wasn't willing to continue, and I was going to drive my Yukon into a guardrail. But thank goodness, the powers to be, my angels and my spirit, had me pull over on Interstate 10 and make a call to a lady that I had no idea that I've never talked to before. and what's crazy is my mom had given me her business card 3 or 4 years earlier with the simple message of, if you ever need anything in life, just call this lady. She's wonderful. She'll do anything for you. She's just great. And she hands me this business card. And Allan, for 4 years, I kept it in my pocket. Many, many times I cleaned out all my business cards, and hers always stayed in there for whatever reason. At the time, I didn't know. I know I'm not going to get rid of that one. And sure enough, on that fateful day in 2008, I picked up the phone and I called Sheila and I introduced myself. And the first thing she said is, "You're going to be okay." And I was like, no chance. Like, I'm not buying it, but if you're going to tell me that, okay, I'll lead you, I'll follow you. But I don't believe you, because I wasn't okay. I was in a really dark spot, and that was the start of a magical friendship. And it just gets better every day. Not every day is great. I think you and I have talked about that, but from that point on, there was a lot of healing, and there's still a lot of healing going on today, but I embrace it. And I think, like I've told you before, I used to look at it as one of the worst things that's ever happened to me. But now it's one of the greatest blessings, because of the things and the people it's brought into my life, like Sheila, like you, like Clint. It's just brought some absolutely magical people into my life and on my journey.
I appreciate you talking about that day. And I'm curious, Chuck, because you and I both hear from a lot of people who don't really know how to respond when someone reaches out, when they are in that kind of emotional distress, when they are in that much pain. What exactly did Sheila offer that allowed you to get through that moment?
It wasn't her words, because she was very soft-spoken, very calm, but it was the energy that came through the phone that day. The calm, it was almost like she was wrapping her arms around me, and giving me a hug to tell me it was going to be okay. And she literally, Allan, spoke to me, I don't know how many times a day for months on end, and just would tell me it's going to be okay. And it was just, she was doing energy work on her end, although she's never admitted that. I know her well enough now to know that she was doing a lot of energy work for me, whether it be Reiki on her end, and she was sending me love and light to help me through, because at a time that I didn't think I was going to make it through, she certainly was the one to help me through that.
You speak a different language. You use different vocabulary, which I appreciate. I know that some people are like, love, light, what? Energy? Chuck, how exactly would you explain energy and how it can not only affect us in a negative way, but also in a positive way, such as what Sheila was able to offer you from far?
Yeah, well, I think, as you and I have talked about, everything is energy. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it be physical, emotional, it doesn't matter. Everything is energy. And there's light energy, there's dark energy, but everything boils down to energy. And I firmly believe that we have control over the energy that's in us. And many people don't think that. And I didn't for many, many years. I felt like I was the victim. And Sheila's probably giggling if she's watching right now, because there's days that I still think I'm the victim. And then she reins me in and slaps me upside the head and, reminds me that I hold my power. And if you hold your power, then you determine your course and your journey. But Allan, there's so much dark energy in our world, especially today, as you and I sit here and speak, with all the different things that are going on. And what people think is that they don't have any choice over the energy that surrounds them. They don't have any energy choice when they walk into a room and they get those feelings. Those feelings are energy. You feel maybe antsy or anxious when you walk into a room. That's energy. And I know now that as I look back and when I have my days that are anxiety filled, that it's the energy that's in me that is unsettled, and it's not flowing. It's not doing. It's not me being me, and not me holding my power, that I've allowed outside energy, dark energy in. And then at that point, when I realize that, I have to start doing my work. Nobody can do it for me. And that's the beautiful thing, is I don't have to depend on anybody else, that I can do it. And as you know, I've just come through, 5 or 6 days that were rough. My wife, Jamie, who I think is watching, who, she'll attest to that the last 5 or 6 days have been very, very rough. But, I can't tell her how much I love her, for the things that she has to deal with as well when I get in these places. And, but, Allan, when I sit back and I look at how I got there, and I do this every time that I go through one of these, I let a lot of outside energy, a lot of outside influencers, i.e. the news, affect me. And once I realized what was going on, and this probably goes back 2 or 3 weeks now, I don't turn the TV on unless now I'm ready to watch a National Hockey League game. And that's really where I watch the DIY network. I'm a DI network guy too, because I love to watch some of those shows on there. But that's really all I watch, because I find that the energy that comes through my TV, I don't want to be associated with it. I don't want it in my space. It's dark. It's negative. It's heavy. And right now, our world, in my opinion, this is only my opinion, our world doesn't need more of that. Our world needs more light. And for my light to shine, I need to stay away from the dark and stay away from other people's messages and other people's negativity in order for my light to shine.
Totally. And I think, Chuck, that a lot of it really just comes down to an awareness, doesn't it? Paying attention to how we feel, because, man, we are so addicted to doing. We are addicted to stuff. And sometimes just to give ourselves permission, slow down and actually feel. And would you consider yourself to be an empath?
Yes, very, very much so. Probably like yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we are sensitive. And Chuck,
Yeah.
I think that when it comes to being a man, I'm not sure that being sensitive necessarily falls into that category, does it? So for you, being so highly sensitive, how do you navigate through that?
It's not always easy. And, even when I look back to when I was a kid, Allan, I was very sensitive. And even now, I think you and I have talked, I can cry at the drop of a hat. And often when people think, oh, here's this, hockey player, and this guy played college and professional hockey, he's tough, he's all this. Yeah, that's not me. I am so sensitive. Maybe when I put on my mask to be, once I step on the ice, I can transform my personality a little bit, or I was told that I could. But deep down, I'm very, very sensitive. And you're right. It's what I've learned to do. And Sheila keeps me in line with this a great deal, is making sure I stay out of my head and I stay in my heart. And I lead with my heart. And that's really what my intention is. And am I perfect at it, Allan? No chance. But it's like all of us, right? It's progress. It's not perfection. And I really work to lead with my heart and to feel into situations, because there's nothing stronger than the knowledge and the wisdom in the energy that you feel. If you will allow yourself to feel that and allow yourself to be in it and allow yourself to ask the questions and receive the answers, because the answers are all in us. We just have to ask the question, and then whether you call it spirit, God, that doesn't matter. I don't care what you call it. Your angels, they will give you the answer. But it's all about getting out of here and getting into here. And if you can do that, you're way ahead of the game. And you asked about how do I protect myself from it. That's one of the things that I learned, and I still do it today, is I put a bubble around myself every single day, multiple times a day. And people say, a bubble? It's like you step into a big balloon. And it literally protects you from the outside energies sticking with me and sticking to me. And I know that if I happen to go half a day without doing it in my mind, that's when some of this stuff starts to creep in. So I do it every hour. I can do it every 10 minutes sometimes if I think about it. I just quickly do my bubble, but I put myself in that bubble to protect me and to give me that extra layer of protection from that dark energy.
Well, and let's paint a picture for people who are tuning in, because I know that energy is a new way to think for some people. Now, if you give yourself permission to reach out to someone when you're struggling, when you're in pain, and you just talk, for 5, 10, 15 minutes, at the end of that, you usually sit back and you think, oh, well, I feel better. Now, why exactly would someone feel better? Because there was a release, correct?
Yes.
Now, the issue is that for helpers, and there are a lot of helpers in this world, you obviously being one of them, Chuck, we listen. And when we listen, we have all of that energy coming at us. So yeah, they feel better. But where does that emotion go? Where does that energy go? At us. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Chuck. That's why we have to protect ourselves. And if we don't, and we allow that energy to penetrate us or through our aura, whatever word it is, that's when you and I and other helpers get sick. Call that mental illness, whatever it is. But that's kind of what you and I have collectively learned, yes?
Absolutely. And, and yes, the world calls it mental illness. And I think it's almost like an energy illness or an energy deficit, maybe even another way to say it, Allan. And that just kind of came to me because it is energy, right? And we've taken in and we've been consumed by that negative, dark energy. And for you and I who are so sensitive, we hold on to that until we can disconnect from it and allow it to flow through us. But a lot of times there's roadblocks in there and it holds. And until we can move those roadblocks and get that moving again, then it goes back to and can be transformed into the light. But and I believe that that's part of the reason that we're here, is to help do that. And it's not always easy. I mean, you and I maybe make it sound easy that, oh yeah, that's just what we do. Yeah, it's, as you and I, we text multiple times per day, and we text Clint multiple times per day. And when I talk to Sheila and I talk to my parents, and you talk to just different people, they can hear it, they can see it, that if we're just a little bit off, or we're a little bit consumed by that dark energy, and it is so important for us to let that go and be transformed into the light again.
And that's the thing, Chuck. Like initially, when I was a counselor, I was like, oh, let me make you feel better. What? You're in pain? Let me take that away from you. And I think that we are able to effectively do that. But to your point, you said it has to go through us or bounce off of that bubble, not ingest it. And, Neil's tuning in here. For those of you who are watching live right now, Neil says, love this, Allan. Chuck's words are so relatable to me regarding being an empath. Funny enough, I was a goalie too. And the thing is, that empath piece, it is a double-edged sword almost, isn't it? Because it's wonderful to feel, but it's also, it can be overwhelming. And I meet with a lot of men recently, Chuck, who look back at their childhood, and they often say that from the hop, right off the get-go, they knew that they were highly intuitive, highly sensitive. But where do you go with that? Who do you talk to? You don't. So you suppress it. And sure, then labels or diagnoses like anxiety can trickle in, depression, you're going to alienate yourself. And going back to what it is to be a man, you don't talk about that. And I know, Chuck, that you, as a father, having 2 daughters, what I love about you is you have conversations about energy, and children can understand energy. What are some of those conversations like when you talk to your children, just to have an appreciation and understanding of energy as emotion?
They can be really powerful, and they're really magical as a dad, because I look back and I know growing up with my parents that I have and still have to this day, 48 years into this journey. I still have these conversations with my parents, and I can only imagine now how they feel having that conversation with me, because I know how I feel when I have the conversation with my girls. And, to share with them that everything is energy and you control it. And when you hold your energy and when you hold your power, there's nothing in this world that you can't do. Doesn't matter what anybody tells you. That's only their opinion. And quite honestly, their opinion doesn't matter. And I don't mean to be mean or arrogant when I say that, but what, like you have said to me before, and I've said to people, what people think of me and what people think of you is none of my business. I mean, and it really isn't. But those conversations are magical when you let them know how much power they have, and that God or spirit is in them, and that's what they're made of. They're made of that likeness. So you have God powers within you. It's not separate from you. It is you. It's who you are. And when people realize that, and people might say that it's an arrogant thing to say, you're not God. Well, if I was made in his likeness, what does that mean to you, Allan? Sounds like we're made of God material to me. No different than people will say to your kids or my kids, oh, you have your dad's eyes and you have your dad's smile and you have so much of your dad in you. Well, that's my dad. God, he's the Father. He's us. We are him. And when we relate that and we have that conversation, and when I have that conversation with my girls, it's magical. Do they understand? I do believe on some level they're understand. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it. And do they go, oh, yeah, Dad, I get that every time? No. But you walk away, and I'm pretty certain that it starts to take root, and it starts to take form, and it starts to take its place. And, those messages and that understanding. And, there's different times that, my girls do high-level gymnastics. And for any of you that have watched high-level gymnastics, it's not as easy as it looks. I promise you. I stood on the balance beam one time and won't ever do it again. But if they're having a tough time at gymnastics, I will look at them and I will just do this. And that means stay centered and ground yourself. And they know what that means. It means walk away, take a deep breath, get grounded, get centered, get my energy where it needs to be, and let's go back at it. So those are the, and it's really special, because my wife, Jamie, we are a team together with the girls, and we talk a lot about this stuff together with them sometimes, or it's just me, but Jamie knows what's going on, and she can relate, and it's, take a deep breath, take it in, and center yourself. And they know now what that means and the power of doing it, because they've experienced it. And there's real magic in that.
Magic, that's a good word. And Chuck, you touched on so many different strategies. I live in the clouds, and thank the good Lord for my beautiful wife, Tanya, who helps get me out of the clouds. And I know that you are so grateful for Jamie, and that in itself, it's absolutely essential to surround ourselves with positive people who get us, right? And to just inform them. And, for me, Chuck, a couple of days ago, I was working with some youth in the North. And what I heard from so many of them were these themes of not being enough, not being worthy. And so many people feel broken. And I think what I understand from what you're sharing and what you believe, it's whatever that word is, God, source, creator, there's something in us that has always been pure, right? Like we have everything that we need in us, but sadly, we often seek that validation outside of ourselves, and we will not find it. And I know that for a lot of men, this is the barrier. This is the problem, to have to go and look within to feel. And so I know, Chuck, that through Compassionate Connections, as a life coach, this is what you do. You help men to go within and feel. What exactly does that process look like?
Allan, and you just touched on one thing, and you brought tears to my eyes when you did it, is talking about not being worthy, because that is a friend that still shows up today for me, 48 years into this particular journey. That it'll wear all different costumes, as my friend Sheila tells me all the time, that they come dressed in different clothes in different ways, but that's one that's been a battle. And I finally, I say finally, I'm not there. It's a journey, but it's one of those things that people often look around and think that everybody else has it made. They've got way more than me. They are happier than me. And I call it, with my daughters, I call it the Instagram life. Call it the social media life, whatever you want to call it, but that's what I call it. Because have you ever looked on social media, other than my friend Joe Cook did it a couple times? His hair was, when he had hair, it was up like this. He had his beard everywhere, and he's like, nobody ever posts this on social media, but everybody posts, oh, this is my life. It's so great, and everybody looks and was like, man, that's not what my life looks like. Good golly Moses. And these Instagram influencers, or whatever you call them, they're always showing, oh, look at all the good things that I have. And little do people know they get all that stuff free, and their life is probably more upside down than anybody's. But it's really all of what the news and the social media teaches us, is that we're not worthy. We're not good enough. And I bought into that for, 35 years, 40 years, whatever it was, until I really started to figure out that I'm okay, and that I like who I am. And it took me a long time to say that, and that I'm worthy of all these things. I'm worthy to have a friend like Allan. I'm worthy to have a friend like Clint, like Sheila. I'm worthy to have the parents that I chose. I'm worthy to have a beautiful wife like Jamie and 2 beautiful daughters. But we have to find that worth within us, because if we're looking outside, you will never, ever find it. And your journey will end on a very dark and lonely spot. But once you turn that in, and that's what I talk to a lot of my guys about, is settling down and being present in the moment. And you were born for this moment. If you weren't born for this moment, you wouldn't be here. Do you think God would have put you here if you weren't ready for it? No chance. No chance. He could have put you anywhere else that he wanted to put you. But he put you there because that's where you were supposed to be. And so, we think we're in control. But I think once we realize who we are, what we're made of, and the power that we have within us, there's a lot more control right here by our team, as you like to call it, right? Our team, and that then people really know about. And I think once you realize it, and what I do with my guys is I teach them how to stay present, because the power in the present moment, that's where it is. All we have is right now. And I remind them that this is where we are. And a lot of my guys are athletes that I work with. And whether they play on Tuesday night or Friday night or Saturday night, they're trying to play the game 5 days ahead of time. I need to be good on Friday. Oh, if I'm not going to be in the lineup. Well, I don't care how hard you try. You will never play that game on Tuesday that you're playing on Friday. You can't make enough saves and you can't score enough goals on Tuesday to have an effect on Friday. And I just remind them of the power of the present moment, that if you're the best that you can be right here, right now, then when that moment comes, and it will be now when it comes on Friday, if you're the best that you can be in that moment right here, right now, you have nothing else to worry about.
Well, Chuck, Tyson says, preach it. Bang on. Maybe you should be a pastor.
I may have been in one life, or you never know.
Hey, Chuck, that might be a whole nother podcast around past lives. Let's open up that can some other time.
Yeah, that would be a conversation for another day.
Well, I know that, you talk about the power of now, and I shared with you, Chuck, that clock that I saw when I was out it's called the DVIC Center for anybody who's tuning in around Saskatoon area. And it's just a clock. And instead of numbers, all of the numbers are gone and they are replaced with the word now. What time is it? Now. What time is it? And to your point, if we can actually live in the now, then there cannot really be anxiety, right? And Louise Hay, I'm reading I am not an avid reader, but I'm trying. And, she talks a lot about that living in the now, and that little piece, those 3 words, which you talked about, Chuck, I am worthy. I am worthy. There were many years for me when that was very uncomfortable, because that's not true. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. And so many people are at that place, like where you were when you made that call to Sheila. No, I'm not. So how is it then, simply put, that you can help somebody navigate from that place of not being worthy and almost having to trick yourself into being worthy? How do you do that?
Well, and I truly believe, Allan, that people like you, people like me, people like Sheila, and Clint, we were handpicked by the big guy to come down here and do the work that we're doing. And we had to go through the unworthiness, the anxiety, the depression, the abuse, whatever it is that and I didn't deal with abuse. So I don't want that to be misunderstood, but the things that you've dealt with, the things that I've dealt with, the things that all of us have dealt with, they're here. We deal with them for a reason. And whether we want to admit what that reason was and use them as tools, but I firmly believe that the things that I went through them so that I could reach back and walk journeys with other souls on this earth and give them my experience, what I did, what worked for me, give them insight into the light. Because when you're in the dark, this, there is no light. You don't see a light. So, it's, and I liken it a lot of times to, drop yourself in a hockey arena with 20,000 seats, turn the light off, set somebody at center ice and tell them to go turn the light on. It's next to impossible. So it takes people that have been able to turn the light on one way or another, or have somebody help them turn the light on and teach them, so that we can take the tools, grow our toolbox, and hand that toolbox off to the next people. And, you brought up Louise Hay, and the first book, and Sheila has been so wonderful, and so have my parents in this manner, of giving me books to read. And you would never know it, and you can confirm this with my wife, Jamie, that in college, if I finished one book, that was like I was an overachiever, because I don't think I ever read one book, and that was awful. But I just didn't like reading. And now, Allan, I have books everywhere. I have them on electronic devices. I have them beside my bed. I have them beside my chair. I mean, I have books everywhere. And the one thing I'll do is I love to go get a coffee, as you know, Tim Hortons, if I'm able to. And I love to read a book. Those are my two vices. I don't do I don't hunt. I don't do all these other things. And I like to read and I like to drink coffee. But the first book that Sheila gave me was by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And I finished reading it once and she told me I needed to read it again. And I was like, well, I just read it. And she's like, yes, but you're coming at it from a different place. So read it again. And I've read it so many times. The actual book is no longer on the spine. It's like 2 or 3 different pieces. I've read it so many times. And but it's a magical book. And Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about the power of now. And it really is. I mean, this is where it's at, right here, right now. I'm here with you, and this is where I want to be, right here, right now. And this is all that you and I have. This is it. I mean, when the clock ticks, it's still now, like you said on that clock. And, people that worry, what's going to happen in a month? What's going to happen in 3 years? Good golly Moses. I don't even know what's going to happen in 3 minutes, let alone in 3 years. But I was that guy. I was the guy that tried to play 72 games in one day because I wanted to know at the end of the season what my stats were going to look like. And if I was going to get called up or if I was going to, how many shutouts I was going to get. And I want to know because I need to know because then I can relax.
Right.
But little did I know that was such an inhibitor to my actual performance. Had I just stayed in the now and been present in the now, I'd have been so much better off. But I didn't know it at that time. So,
right.
It was one of those.
There's a great line, when you know better, you do better.
Yes.
And I love that you are thirsty for knowledge. If you want to find any chance at peace, to your point earlier, it's work. You have to make that happen from within, not from outside.
It's all, as I've said, and it's always said to me, and I think it's my mom's favorite line is, it's an inside job.
Right.
And it is. And thank goodness it is, because we don't have to count on anybody else. Like that in itself is magical, that it's up to me. And is it easy? I'm not going to for a minute tell you that it's easy. Is it worth it? Absolutely.
Well, that's the key. How can we help empower people who are struggling to understand that at some point, maybe you have been training your whole life to get to the place where you can then help others, right? Where you can become a teacher. And I know we've talked about this lots, Chuck, where, man, wouldn't it have been amazing if in those times of despair, of darkness, we actually could understand that one day this will be our gold. We will be able to use this, because how do you have true empathy if you have not gone through it? And in a twisted way, you have to have darkness to have light. You have to have some bad to have good. And we meet with all of these people who are at the place where they're not sure whether or not they can keep fighting. They're not sure whether or not they can continue. And we say this often, the fact that you are still breathing means that you have unfinished business, right?
Absolutely. And, we're here for a reason. And until our reason and our journey and all of our purpose has been fulfilled, we will be here. But, and once our job here is done, then we'll go to the other side and do our work there again. And that's a subject for another day as well. But I think, Allan, to your point, when people are in that spot, and I know I was, and when I get to that spot still on these days, it's because I've given my power away. I've let other people dictate to me in some way, whether, some way, shape, or form, they're dictating for me my peace and my happiness. And not always, but that can be the start of it, right? And once people know the power that they have within them, and they know how to utilize that power, and it's not as difficult. We try to make all this stuff so hard as humans. we're really good at making stuff hard. And when you get introduced to my friend Sheila, she'll tell you that, I can make, There's days I can make stuff really hard. You just ask her and I can make stuff so hard it'll blow anybody's mind. But when she reminds me of how easy it is, and it can be just so simple, and it just is what it is, but the power is within us, that changes everything.
Totally. Yeah, you say it well, Chuck. You know, to kind of bring this all home, Tyson Williams, he's all the way out in North Battleford, Saskatchewan. He chimed in with this, Chuck. He says, it always sends chills when you watch or listen to another person talk, someone you've never met or heard of, no offense, but yet can relate so much to them. Powerful stuff, boys. And that's just it, the power of a story. And Chuck, I really thank you for taking the time to share your story, your experiences, your wisdom. Ram Dass, you know, he often says we're all just walking each other home. And I love the way that you think. Very grateful to know you. Thank you so much, Chuck. Much love, much respect.
And that's right back at you, Allan. I've told you numerous times, you're a true blessing to me, your friendship, that our journeys have come together. I'm so grateful, and I look forward to where the road ahead is going to take us. And I'm not looking too far down that road, I promise you, because I've done that before. But I just know that right here, right now, it's perfect. And as things unroll and roll out for you and I and Clint, there's magic there. And I just want to say one thing to everybody that's listening is just know that you're worthy. Know that you're loved more than you'll ever know. And you're here for a reason. And I urge you to find that reason. Because there's a saying that I always love, and our friend Clint reminded me of this. The two greatest days in your life are the day you're born and the day you realize why. And once you realize why, like you and I have, and Clint has, and Sheila has, and I think a lot of people on this earth have, that's the day that everything changes. And it's magical. So thank you for being you. And thank you for loving me, for being me. And I so appreciate you and the way you show up, and for having me on your show today. So thank you.
Well, you say it beautifully, Chuck. Thank you so much. And to everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to tune into Mental Health. It's time to talk. Take good care and be well.